Brutal nature of T20 cricket. Glenn Maxwell's horror IPL comes to an end while Travis Head makes back-to-back ducks. Is he tiring? Aaron Finch has some concerns ahead of the World Cup. Mitchell Starc fights his way back into form and into the IPL final. And is Australia searching for a backup plan if the Steve Smith experiment fails? Let's go around the wicket. Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of Around the Wicket. I'm Neroli Meadows, Callum Ferugson, Aaron Finch and Tim Paine to join us. Michael Clarke coming up as well. But there's a bit to get through from overnight IPL action. The Rajasthan Royals, without Jos Buttler, managed to get a 4-wicket win over RCB, which means Glenn Maxwell's IPL campaign is over. He finished with his 4th duck of the tournament. Well, Cameron Green, he finished with a pretty solid all-round performance. From that English perspective, Jos Buttler went home to play up against Pakistan. That was a washout, which means that Jofra Archer's return to the ECB camp or the ECB fold has been delayed. So now that we've got that out of the way, gents, Paine, I want to start with you. Glenn Maxwell, he finishes this IPL averaging less than 6, as I said, 4 ducks, finishes with a golden duck. How concerned are you ahead of the World Cup?
No, not concerned at all, to be honest. Thank God the IPL's over, though. Let's get Maxi home, give him a week off, let him refresh, and then get him back around the Aussie setup with a bit of familiarity, a bit of love, a bit of a cuddle. We know how good he can be. So, look, he hasn't had the greatest IPL. I don't think it's going to have any impact on the World Cup. We know he's a match winner. I just think it's important the next week or so that they get around him, make sure he's in a great headspace because, as I've said before, he's high risk, high reward. He's going to be inconsistent, but he can win us a World Cup if he plays at his best.
The nature of the dismissal, though, what did you think about it, Finchy?
It was a poor shot. I mean, on the back of a wicket, they were just starting to build nicely, and it looked like that they could get to a decent total, but it was a shot of a guy that had almost had enough of the IPL this year. It's been a difficult campaign for him. I think his bowling has been a highlight. His batting has just been poor.
On that, he opened the bowling up against CSK, which is the win that got them into the elimination final. They won 6 in a row, an amazing run. Got a first ball wicket of Gaikwad, who is a really important character and captain of CSK. Would you potentially open the bowling with him or in the power play at the World Cup if you're Mitch Marsh?
I think there'll be a conversation around it, depending on the surfaces. But I think the one thing that you always come back to as a captain in this situation is, as an opening batter, who do you at least want to face? Is it Mitchell Starc swinging the ball back or going away from a left-hander? Or is it the part-time, better than part-time, but is it the finger spin of Glenn Maxwell? And I think what I always came back to as a captain was Mitchell Starc's record in the first over is brilliant, so give him the first opportunity.
Maxi, these guys are being pretty nice at the moment, and we're all friends with him, of course, as we are in the cricketing world, but it hasn't been a great IPL.
No, it's been really tough for him, and look, it is, like Paine said, the nature of his position. It's a tough one to be consistent in, but he just never got going at any point in the tournament. Look, I think from Australia's point of view, I don't think they will be too concerned. I think they know what he brings to the table in big tournaments, and he does get up for them. So, look, it's a great chance for him now to reset. He'd be really disappointed with the tournament, no doubt about it, and he's expressed that. But I'm expecting him to bounce back really hard. He just looked a little bit indecisive through this IPL, which is so unlike Maxi. He's so decisive normally. So hopefully he can just relax, reset and go again.
Meanwhile, the top 4 that Australia was looking for the World Cup, Travis Head was the only one in form and actually playing and fit and ready to go. Back-to-back ducks, you're a little bit worried.
Oh, not about his form. I think over what I've seen in the last couple of years of Heady is that even throughout a summer, he starts off really well, but then his form just dips off towards the end. And I think that comes down to tiredness. This is the first full IPL campaign that he's played. It's an opportunity for him to have a few days break now. But once you're always in performance mode and a campaign like the IPL or international cricket, you don't get a chance to recharge or, I guess, train a huge amount because you're always just looking forward to the next game and making sure that you're as fresh as you possibly can be. So I think the pattern of Heady playing a lot of cricket and then form dipping off is no coincidence. I think it's just the fact that he needs to get away from the game for a little bit. Obviously, it's not going to happen with an IPL final. or a couple of finals around the corner. But I just think that there has to be a way to manage his workload a little bit differently. Maybe it's a physical fitness thing. Maybe it's a mental fitness thing at different times. So it's, I think that there needs to be something done in the next couple of weeks to make sure that he's cherry ripe for the World Cup.
Now, the reason why he was out for a duck is the man that you mentioned before, Mitchell Starc, hasn't had the greatest IPL, but geez, he has come good in a huge game. He got KKR through to the final, a player of the match performance, 3 for 34, as I said, including head. And I believe it's the 4th time he's got head out for a duck across all forms of cricket. So it's a matchup that I think Trav will be pretty happy that they play on the same team at World Cups and not against each other. But Paine, what did you make of Starkey and the way he came good at the perfect time?
Yeah, probably not surprised. I think Mitchell Starc's over the journey probably been a victim of his own brilliance at times. We expect so much of him. We expect it all the time. I think if you look at his tournament in the end of the IPL, it's really similar in numbers to Pat Cummins. They've done it in different ways. Cummo was superb at the start and Starkey's come good late. But look, a lot's talked about the price tag of Starkey. That doesn't matter. I think it was brilliant awareness and use of their list to have that money KK at the end. They needed something specific, which was a wicket-taking fast bowler. They went and got it, and it looks like at the moment he's running into the best of form right when they need him to. So, it's a great thing for KK. It's also a great thing for Australia because Mitchell Starc is a massive, massive confidence bowler, and when he's on and feeling good, as we know, he's absolutely devastating.
So you've got Pat Cummins Sunrisers, who is Travis Head as well, up against the Rajasthan Royals, who don't have any Aussies in the fold. They're fighting for a spot in that final up against KKR, which is Starkey. You've captained Mitch a lot.
Yep.
What's he like to captain?
He can be difficult at times because he's very stubborn, and as a lot of the great players are as well. That they know what they want to achieve, and I think at times that can be a real benefit, and at times it can make it a little bit tougher. But I think a lot of credit to KKR for sticking through some difficult games with him, because you buy a player like Mitchell Starc to win your big games when it matters. And his record suggests that when the pressure is well and truly on, that he will get the job done. So for me, there is nothing harder than bowling in T20 cricket. That is the hardest job in the game, especially up front. Starkey hasn't played a huge amount of T20 cricket leading up to the IPL either. So the fact that now he's got 12, 13, 14 games under his belt, that'll be a huge positive for him personally. Just to get the rhythm of T20 cricket, the continuity of just executing under pressure. Guys walking out first ball trying to hit you out of the park, that's a different mindset to Test cricket, one-day cricket, even any kind of cricket that he's played over the last couple of years. So you buy players with a big price tag to win big games, and Mitchell Starc will definitely do that.
And let's not forget, this is probably the hottest tournament that we've seen in a long, long time with the impact player coming in. We've seen scores go through the roof this season. So you've got to suggest that, yes, it took him a little bit of time, but he's not on his own. I mean, the economy rates for the bowlers have skyrocketed. So credit to KKR. But he's managed himself quite well. He's gotten to the pointy end where he's really hitting his straps, which is a huge bonus for KKR.
And you guys always talk about the importance of family and support network. He often doesn't get that because Elisa Healy is busy captaining Australia.
Yeah.
She's been able to be there for a chunk of time, and I wonder how much that has helped him behind the scenes and provide that little bit of balance. I want to ask you about Cameron Green. Is he in your World Cup 11? Because the last 4 innings for RCB, 143, an average of 71.50, a strike rate of 161 and 3 wickets as well. He was brilliant with the ball last night despite a loss.
Yeah, look, he's such a tantalising option, isn't he? He bowls over 140 and he's batting beautifully further up the order as well towards the back end of the tournament, which is really exciting. I've still got Stoyne a little bit ahead of him. Marcus Stoyne, his ability to bowl across all 3 phases probably just gets him the tick, because he's got such great skill with the ball as well, Marcus, and he's found form with the bat, which is exciting for Australia too.
Paine, before I let you go, the ILT20 has come out and said it's going to start January 11 next year with the Champions Trophy, just throwing a few things awry with the scheduling. Are you concerned about that impending clash with the Big Bash?
Yeah, certainly. I don't think it's good for the Big Bash. We saw a lot of great players exit this tournament late last year around finals time, which isn't ideal for clubs. It's not ideal for players. But my issue with that whole tournament is I don't really see the purpose that it's serving. It's used Big Bash cricket in Australia to continue to grow the game. We hear that that's what it's doing in the UAE. I'm just not seeing that. I'm seeing 9 overseas players. I'm seeing 2 local players. And most of the time when I see those local players, they're batting 9, 10, 11, and they're not bowling an over. So I don't see what it's doing to grow the game in that region. And I think it's something that needs to be looked at going forward.
I've got concern. I still feel like the BBL opened the door for some of these tournaments to really try and encroach on that time of year. Yes, there's some tournament activity which is going to reshuffle the season or the year of T20 cricket, but Big Bash, it opened the door. Overseas players started looking at other options because we extended the tournament out to 14 games. The overseas players saw that, didn't really see the pay go with the number of games, started looking elsewhere. Now these tournaments are popping up everywhere. It's put a bit more pressure on the BBL and Cricket Australia.
Paine, thank you very much, as always, for your time. Just reach behind you, grab a bat, grab some gloves, get back out there. We'd love to see it. Don't go anywhere on Around the Wicket, because another former Aussie captain, Michael Clarke, is coming right up. We're going to get his reaction to Usman Khawaja's huge call that this current Australia Test team is as good as we've ever seen.
I think this current Australian team is as good as any other team that's played before. For me, it's as good as some of the other teams that I've grown up watching, and I don't say that lightly. I've grown up watching some amazing Australian teams. I would never say we're better than any of them, obviously, never, but this team, the balance, what it has, it's one of the strongest ones I've played in.
Call from Usman Khawaja. Michael Clarke joins us now, his former teammate. Pup, I don't know, my nana used to talk about the Invincibles a lot. We had teams in our lifetime that have won 16 in a row. What do you think?
You can't ask me this. Look, I think knowing Uzi, I don't think he means it how some people could probably take it. Look, at the end of the day, I think as a player, and certainly as a senior player or captain, you always think your teams are as good as any other team in the world. You know, you give me the Ashes team that I captained in Australia when we won 5-0, we'll take on anyone. You give me the World Cup team we won in 2015, we'll take on anyone. But you don't say that meaning disrespect to other players or other teams. I think Uzi does say that. But look, the Invincibles, the reason they're called the Invincibles, I think you know, Steve Waugh's team that won 16 tests in a row, Ricky Ponning's team that won 16 tests in a row. I honestly don't think you can even compare. And not to disrespect the current team, I don't think it's fair on those other teams, those other players, or this current team. I think it is what it is. This team's playing brilliantly, and I love Uzi's confidence in his teammates. That's awesome. But yeah, I just think you've got to be so careful when selecting those words about past teams, because you could light a fuse that you probably don't want to light. Any team that's got Shane Warne and Glenn McGrath in it, tough to beat. Any team with Sir Donald Bradman in it, tough to beat. So the People's Champ mightn't have meant what I think some people might be taking, or how they might be taking it.
He did say those words that I don't say this lightly. I feel like I love Aussie, but if this was an Englishman saying something like this, we'd jump all over it.
Yeah, that's a part of Ashes rivalries for generations. And I think the one thing about this current team is I don't think that they do get enough credit for how good they've been for such a long period of time, though. And yes, I 100% agree with what Pup said there, but I also think that we're taking this team for granted a little bit. I mean, the World Test Championship, the only thing that probably grabs it a little bit is the 2 back-to-back series losses to India at home. The great teams of the generations that I grew up watching didn't lose at home very often at all, particularly back-to-back. But they had an opportunity, a great opportunity to beat India in India. 1 hour of stupidity, of really brain fade in Delhi cost them an opportunity to do that as well. But I think that they're a great team. Are they as good as the others? So hard to judge.
We decided to let Tim Paine go before we bring up those losses at home again. We brought up too many times for poor old Paine against India. I tell you what, though, I think maybe we need to come up with a nickname for Pat Cummins' side, something similar to the Invincibles off the back of Uzi's comments. But we look ahead to the next summer, Pup, and county cricket. Well, it's throwing some interesting ideas out there. You've got Cameron Bancroft, back-to-back tons. You've also got Marnus Labuschagne, who is opening and scored 111 opening in county cricket. What do you make of all this ahead of Steve Smith opening next summer?
It is interesting. I guess I wanted to find out if Marnus's county team had an injury, so he just went up to open for that game. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. So, look, I don't know. I think it's a plan B. I think no doubt Australia's plan A. Steve Smith opened the batting. Hope he dominates and we get on with it. But as a plan B, to know that you got Marnus who can also do it, I think either Steve Smith or Marnus is a better option than Cameron Green to open the batting, and that's no disrespect to Cameron Green. I just think these two have played a lot more Test cricket. They know conditions. I think they're probably better suited, and Cameron seems to be very comfortable in that number 4 spot. And the other thing, Cam Bancroft, that's definitely still got to be an option for the selectors. If someone gets injured or they only want one all-rounder, and it's hard on one of the 11 to get dropped, but you're picking the best 11 players for the conditions you're playing in against the opposition you're playing against. So it's not personal if someone else to miss out. It's what's best for the team. But, yeah, I definitely think Marnus opening, my gut says there's been a conversation between whether it's Andrew McDonald, Pat Cummins, selectors, to just try and get some opening batting under your belt as a plan B for Steve Smith.
Knowing Andrew McDonald the way that I do, I don't think that he's ever gone to a county or a franchise or anything and said, this is what we want. They're free to do whatever they want in terms of where they bat Marnus. So I think that it's Marnus just putting his hand up and saying, if you want someone to do it, I'll do it. I personally would love to see Smith back at 4. He's been one of the greatest players that we've seen batting at 4. So let him do his job really well. Yes, he put his hand up as not a makeshift opener, but to fill a hole that they needed at the time for the 2 tests against the West Indies, and then that flowed into New Zealand. So for me, I'd love to see him back at 4. However else you structure
Who
that
do you
up.
drop then, Finchy? Yeah, if you bring Smitty back at 4, you got to drop someone.
Or you don't have to drop someone. Maybe Marnus goes up to open the batting and Green bats 3. I think that Steve Smith at 4 has been one of the greatest players we've ever seen.
Yeah.
So we're shuffling around a great to fill a position that he might do well in. Yes, of course he's a great player, so he will get runs, but will he get more runs and be more beneficial to the team at 4? That's the only question that I've got. So often, we've seen it in World Cups, 50 over and T20. Oh, we've got one of the greatest openers Australia's ever seen in David Warner. Oh, he'll be able to adjust and shuffle down and bat number 4. Why do we keep changing things for great players to be batting out of position? That's the only question that I've got.
It's a good sign that we've got guys batting well in county conditions against the Duke ball at the top of the order. Good sign.
Don't go anywhere. Puppy's going to be with us after this short break because we've got 2 World Cup winning captains who are going to give us their game plan for Australia to execute at the West Indies and, in their hope, bring home their second T20 crown in the men's side of the game. Australia have confirmed their 15-man squad for the World Cup, and they've also added 2 reserve players, Jake Fraser-McGurk, which is putting a smile on all of our panellists' faces, as well as Matt Short. They've also got options of flying people in from the UK if needed, if there's any injury concerns. Michael Clarke is still with us. World Cup winning captain Aaron Finch as well. So Finchy, I want to get your 3 key factors that Australia must execute in the West Indies if they're to win their second World Cup for the men.
Well, I think T20 cricket has evolved over the last couple of years, and power play wickets are still the number 1 for me, where you can have such an impact on the game if you dominate the power play with the ball. There's a lot of numbers around that you get thrown in T20 cricket, but if in-batters are in towards the back end and the middle, they can do so much damage. So getting wickets early on, getting into the middle order with the new ball is so important. And I think Australia's got a very well-balanced squad for that. Obviously, Mitchell Starc up front. Josh Hazlewood is an expert at it and probably the person that flies under the radar all the time. Pat Cummins, they've got the option of using Zampa in the power play. And then my number 2 is the middle order boundary hitting. I think that is such an important role. And against spin in particular as well, because they'll face a lot of spin in the West Indies, and a lot of teams have got good wrist spin as well. But I think the middle order boundary hitting is so important because, the middle overs boundary hitting, because it's the ability to set it up in the power play, however you do that, whether it's Travis Head going really hard and Warner sort of sitting in behind and doing the job through the middle as well. But then once that power play goes, you can't afford to let the game just drift and the air go out of the game almost. You have to be prepared to continue to take that on, and I think that Australia's got a squad for that. They've got aggressive players through the middle. if there's a left-hander in particularly, and then you've got Maxi, who basically a left-hander as well. Yeah. And then number 3 for me, catching. This IPL has showed us one thing, that the catching has been deplorable right throughout the tournament, and catching is so important. You can't afford to give good players an opportunity. I mean, if you think about like Heinrich Klaassen, for example, I think that he's one of the best players in the world at the moment. You can't give them a chance because they'll hurt you so much. They don't need a second invitation to continue to put the foot down. And like our players, you drop Glenn Maxwell, you're asking for trouble. So I think catching is so important. And it goes without saying, and it should go without saying, how important it is on the game, because you get it drilled into you from a young age. But I think it's one thing that can't afford to be overlooked.
So from one captain's team meeting to another, Pup, what are your 3 key factors for the Aussies?
Mine is similar to Finch's, I guess. Mine, from a batting perspective, is the power play based on condition. Caribbean, the wickets are quite slow. Generally, the best time to bat is against that brand new ball. So I think we, the Australian team, probably have to take a few more risk in that first 6 overs. And that's why I guess I was a big one for wanting Jake Fraser-McGurk in the team. I think he really offers that stand and deliver from ball one. Travis Head, we've seen throughout the IPL, does exactly the same. So if they go Warner and Travis Head at the top of the order, I think those two have just got to look to be as aggressive as you can. There's risk with that. You might lose a couple of wickets, but I think the first 6 overs, 2 fielders out, brand new ball, I think you really have to dominate if you're going to win this World Cup for those conditions. Playing spin bowling is always a challenge for teams through the middle over period in conditions, again, like the West Indies. Slow, low. You get a lot of natural variation over there. And I know it's only 20 overs, but again, facing a new ball against spin versus facing a 12-over ball is very different. So I think how Australia plays spin bowling is extremely important. Yes, it's important how we bowl it, but I think from a batting perspective, how we play it, strike rotation, using your sweep, using your reverse sweep, finding boundary options, so important. And a lot of the time that's batters in, because it's quite hard to start in conditions like that on 0 and not many runs. So the batters that get in have got to capitalise and cash in. And then I think with the ball, a little bit like what Finchy said, I think it's the aggressive approach, that aggressive mindset, look to take wickets with the brand new ball. I think don't fear losing. If you're going to go down, losing in the 16th over is no different to losing in the 19th. You're going to lose, you're going to lose. But if you've got an opportunity to attack to help you win or give yourself a chance of winning, I hope Mitch Marsh has a crack at that. I hope he goes back to his strike weapon a little bit earlier. If Mitchell Starc swinging the ball up front and has taken a wicket, then he's allowed to bowl 3 overs. He's allowed to bowl 4 overs, up front. I think it's just having that really aggressive approach, look to take wickets all the way through the 20 overs, because as Finchy mentioned, and it's correct, the best way to slow scoring is to take wickets. So doesn't matter what format, I like the theory, look to bowl the opposition out.
I just love the fact that he looks as fired up as he was out there when he was making those calls just quietly.
One thing to also note is that net run rate doesn't carry through to the second stage of the tournament, and neither do the points. So if you're losing 8 overs or you're losing on the last ball, it doesn't matter because you're not carrying points over, you're not carrying net run rate over either. So 100% agree with Pup there. You have to be aggressive.
Yeah, the power play for me with the bat, someone in the top 3 needs to go big. And I think that helps with your boundary hitting through the middle. Aggressive bowling for wickets, as Pup said as well, for me, that's just got to be the number one all the way through, particularly on slow wickets. But the fielding has always been the Aussie barometer in big tournaments, and I think that's going to hold a really big key for the Aussies.
Great use of the word barometer in the show, Phil.
Yeah. I tried to slip it in a few weeks ago, couldn't get it in.
Michael Clarke, on that note, thank you very much for joining us. We'll chat again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Don't go anywhere because these two are going to be taking on the short stuff next, and I've got to tell you, there's a good story coming.
Yes, it wasn't great. It wasn't great hearing all the boos and that. Certainly, I mean, I felt sorry for Hadik as well. It's never nice to have to go through something like that. So, yeah, there's certain things that we need to address. And as I said, we are going to address them. Now's not probably the right time. Everyone's very disappointed and emotional.
Mumbai Indians coach Mark Boucher there talking about Hardik Pandya's captaincy after he took over from Rohit Sharma. He also said those off-field issues maybe clouded his thoughts when it came to on-field decisions in captaincy. This is the short staff, only 4 wins for the 5-time champs. What's going to be the fallout?
There'll be a lot of fallout, I think. It was a really disappointing campaign. And the one thing that alarms me slightly is that Mark Boucher saying that the off-field issues clouded Hardik's decision-making on the field. That's the coach's job, is to make sure that you are crystal clear as a captain going into each game, that you are so well planned and prepared that you've thought through every scenario that can possibly happen, so that when it becomes time, the one of the moves that you've discussed has been well and truly thought out.
USA beat Bangladesh ahead of the World Cup. How significant is this?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, we know that the US cricket is growing at a rate of knots. You know, the new MLC is gaining momentum with every day that passes. This is huge for the national team, and it gives them relevancy going into this World Cup. Huge result for them. Bangladesh, not so much.
Quirky one, Scotty Scheffler got arrested ahead of the PGA Championship. What's been the worst build-up to your career or a game ever?
The second ever T20 that I played for Australia was meant to be torrential rain for 3 or 4 days in Melbourne. Miscalculated slightly, maybe went out and had 1 or 2 too many, and just miscalculated, and that's all.
Can happen.
But you know what? Went out the next day, man of the match, my first man of the match in this
there you go.
53 not out. Thanks for coming.
How much did you ever cook? At what time did you get home?
Can't remember.
1:45.
About
2:30. If there was, the NFL, is looking at maybe having a game at the MCG, which cricketer would make the best quarterback?
Glenn Maxwell. Rocket arm, moves beautifully, and he'd be thrown to the wide receiver in Aaron Finch.
I've eventually got it out. Finchy?
Cameron Green, I think.
Cameron Green, I like it. He is an athlete. He is an athlete. Thank you very much for your company.
Cheers.
We'll be chatting to you from the World Cup.
Great show.
We'll see you next week.